How's it going, Rangers and overall hockey fans? Thank you guys so much for chiming in for the latest episode here at Rangers Review. Myself, Wardy, alongside Statboy Steven, as we break down everything that you guys need to know and our initial reactions to the first three games for the New York Rangers and how they fared thus far in round two against the Carolina Hurricanes. This is a series that has definitely had some highs and it's definitely had some lows. But overall, a decent start for the Rangers. Not as bad as I would say as we saw in the Penguins series, but definitely things that the Rangers need to get better on if they want to make sure that they have a chance in this matchup. So far, they've lost 2 games to winning 1. The first win was yesterday at home. The Hurricanes have yet to win a game on the road here in the playoffs. We'll see if that changes potentially in their next matchup. But a lot to break down in this episode 58 of Rangers Review. Steven, I'm excited for it. Always feels good to talk after a Rangers win, no less. So how are you doing today?
Yeah, I remember we recorded last week, and we were pretty much in agreement that this is a series that the Rangers can win. Coming into game one, having watched them against the Bruins, I wasn't really convinced that this was the Carolina Hurricanes team we saw in the regular season. And truth be told, that first game, game one, we're going to break it down in a couple of seconds, games 1, 2, and 3. But to quickly go through it, game one, we could have won that easily. We were just unlucky. Kako set up Hedel, Reeves, and Lafreniere in the first period alone with prime scoring chances. It reminded me of period 1 against the Penguins in game 1.
Yeah.
The Rangers should have gotten away with at least 2 or 3 goals. If that happens, we're talking about a 2-1 lead in the series after 3. But let's also not forget that we're going up against a team that won the William M. Jennings Trophy, the trophy given to the goalies that allowed the fewest goals in the regular season. So technically the best defense. You're playing against the best defense in the regular season. Rangers were the second best defense in the regular season. So it's going to be tough to score goals. And you can see the same thing for Carolina. Carolina's struggling to score goals too.
Yep.
It's not like they have really good chances. It's not like they are able to skate into a zone, set up the offense, and play their game. And this is the big point here. The Carolina Hurricanes in 3 games against the Rangers have not played their own game. I honestly think they're beatable. The Hurricanes haven't won a game on the road, like you said. All you have to do is win at home and then decide it in game 7.
That's what you would think from the trend that we've had right now too. But let's also be wary, Steven, of the amount of different trends that we saw in one singular matchup against the Penguins, right? You had really felt like 3 different series in one. So while to this point that holds true, exactly. Whoever has home seems like they have the best advantage. We'll see again if that holds true. I'm not trying to jinx anything, knocking on wood for the next game. But to how you started the conversation, you're right. Both of us went into this series with really happy for the most part, however the Rangers would do, hoping that they wouldn't get swept, at least that they would have a competitive fight. And I mean, outside of game 2, I would say that this team has been pretty competitive. I mean, if we start off on game 1 in this series for the Rangers, yes, they ended up losing 2-1, but let's talk about how we got here, right? And what stood out, because the Rangers, they got off early. Great goal scoring was from Philip Hedel. That was early on, a little halfway through there in the first period, assisted by Alexis Lafreniere. Nice setup. Hedel has continued to thrive here in playoffs. That entire kid line, and that kid line took over the entire game in game 1 for the Rangers. And naturally, I saw after the game, and I can understand the frustrations of Kako's miss they had in the third period, and another one too. But without Kako's efforts and that kid line effort, the Rangers don't even score the one lone goal that they had in this one. So, I mean, at the end of the day, yes, would I have liked to see Kako bury at least one of them to kind of put an insurance goal in there? Because just a 1-goal lead against the Carolina Hurricanes through 2 periods, it's destined to break at some point. It feels inevitable. And it felt that way because while the Rangers had the pace of play through the first 2 periods, which was awesome to see, especially when you go into Carolina. Carolina is as good as they are. They are the team that has everything to lose, but they're still going to be playing strong. They were not on their game through those first 2 periods. The first 40 was by no means it looking like Carolina Hurricanes hockey. Then we got to the third period and everything completely turned on its head. The Hurricanes dominated the New York Rangers in that third period, and Igor Shesterkin can only stay strong for how long? Sebastian Aho ended up scoring the game-tying goal there late in the game with only, not even 3 minutes left. His third of the playoffs, assisted by Jarvis and Teravainen. And then we get an OT, and a damn fluky goal basically from the point shot by Ian Cole goes in. And I believe it hit off Lindgren
on the way in.
Yeah, hit Lindgren on the way in, and that's how it ended. I mean, this was just a game that the Rangers they're going into Carolina. They actually catch Carolina slipping in the sense that they weren't on their game. They get off to an early lead, but it's almost like this Rangers team. It's like, yes, they were able to secure, thankfully, the lead and to keep that yesterday, but it almost feels like this team is better at times when they're down. We saw it in the Penguins series. We saw it so much during the regular season. And that's something that has carried over to a certain extent, knowing at least that when they are down by a goal or two, this is a resilient club. This is a team that you cannot count out until the very last minute, or really just the whole entire wrap up of the game. But to go over once more, the Rangers lost game 1, 2-1. And the entire top six, in my opinion, was completely non-existent. I mean, we saw flashes of what we saw where the Rangers faltered in those games in Pittsburgh a couple days ago, right? There was very little production that we saw from Mika Zibanejad, Kreider, etc. Same thing there on the second line led by Panarin. And it was frustrating because, again, how many times are you going to catch the Hurricanes off their game? Thankfully, we've seen them, I would say, fairly off for the most part. That third period, they dominated, yes. But overall, I mean, the Rangers, they do have a chance in this one, maybe more than they initially thought. Again, if we're basing things on what we have seen through the first three games, anything can change, anything can turn on its head so quick in playoffs. We learned that the easy and hard way there in round one, at least. But Igor in game one did have a decent amount of saves for the Rangers. He put up 24 saves and 26 shots. And then, yeah, the lone goal again from Philip Hedl. So they lose game one, Steven. And do you have any final thoughts on that matchup before we get into game two?
Yeah, strong 40 minutes. Unable to close it out in the final 20. Carolina really had something to prove after those 40 minutes. They came out for the third period. And once they had their foot on our throats, they didn't let go. The Rangers were in survival mode. Every time they cleared the zone, it was only to go for a line change. They never got possession of the puck. They never were able to gain momentum back. And ultimately, the period was 2 minutes too long. We were very close to a shutout win in Carolina in the playoffs, which is very impressive. Unfortunate loss. I don't want to blame Kako for the loss because honestly, the top six is more to blame, but I don't want to blame an individual for losing a game in the playoffs. It's just you cannot, you cannot simplify hockey to the point where you judge a player based on one play in a 60-minute game. But I understand that it's frustrating to lose a game in the playoffs, but let's not forget that we're going up against the best defense in the regular season. We're going up against a top team, a team that made the conference final in 2019 when we were picking second overall. You know, this is a team has been building, that has been making runs in the playoffs, that has been adding that experience. You know, and we talked about this in a previous episode when the Rangers entered round one against the Penguins. The Rangers had a total experience of 593 NHL playoff games. The Pittsburgh Penguins had over 1,500. Now, I haven't done the math on the Carolina Hurricanes, but the fact that they made it to the conference final, I think twice, they are a team with more experience. And experience isn't everything, but it is a big thing. So, unfortunate loss in game one. Then they go into game two, and game two was not the same game. Game two, the Carolina Hurricanes came out of the locker room ready to go, but it was still a very closed game. And this is where you really see the defense shine on both sides. You see the Rangers defense, they give up shots, but they don't give up shots from high danger areas, like that area right in front of the net. Right between the circles. That is the most dangerous spot to give away shots on net. The Rangers didn't really give up shots from there. The only goal that they conceded, because not counting empty net goals, because there's no goalie in the net, but the only goal they conceded was a breakaway shorthanded by Brendan Smith. Really good finish by Brendan Smith. Unfortunate that the Rangers had their opportunities on the power play. They had power plays, including a 4-minute power play on a double minor, I think, on Brady Shea. But the Rangers were unable to capitalize. Tough loss. But I'm not as upset about that loss as I am about the game one loss because, yeah, you lose game two, and then all of a sudden it's an uphill battle. But again, we're talking about the Carolina Hurricanes that have not lost at home, but more importantly, have not won on the road so far this postseason. And this is where it comes in for the Rangers. Win your games at home and you leave it all out there for a game 7. If you can win at home in game 4, you can steal game 5, you might be able to finish it in 6. But ideally, or most realistic scenario for the Rangers is win your games at home and then try to win it all in game 7. Leave it all out on the ice there. But yeah, this game, 2-0 loss. Brendan Smith, 15 minutes and 54 seconds into the second period, shorthanded Sebastian Aho and Teuvo Teravainen with the assists. And then in the third period, with like 2 seconds to go, Sebastian Aho as his 4th of the season on an empty net. Yeah, this was probably a good win for Carolina, not necessarily a bad loss for the Rangers. And before we go into game 3, I want to quickly touch on Shesterkin. In the Penguins series in game 2, at the end of the game, Jeff Carter ran into him. You remember this. Earlier in that game, there was a slew foot by Evan Rodriguez on Shesterkin. And then he had games 3 and 4 where he was pulled. He was terrible. He's like .800 save percentage. I think he was below 800 for one of those games. Came back in game 5, elimination game, .906. Game 6, .9912. Game 7, .929 in a game 7 win at home. And then so far, the Carolina Hurricane series, .923 in game 1, .952 in game 2. And the game you're going to talk about now, .977 in game 3 for Igor Shesterkin. I think Shesterkin was hurt in games 3 and 4, and he's finally healthy.
Yeah, no, 100%. And it's going to be very interesting when looking at the goaltending matchup between these two clubs, because as great as Raanta has been playing, it does look like Freddie Andersen may be back sooner than later. I don't know if you saw, but it was tweeted today that Freddie Andersen was doing full practice, I believe, in uniform and everything for the Hurricanes.
He made the trip to New York, yes.
Yeah, so that'll be interesting because it's not like Raanta's played bad hockey. No, but by all means, he's been a heavy factor into the Carolina Hurricanes' success thus far. And same thing when looking at Igor. I mean, Igor does what Igor does for the Rangers, and it's great to see Igor back in a groove of things. And you can tell that even with them being down 2-0, that it wasn't going to put a hindrance, especially after everything that we learned from round 1, is that truly anything can happen in these playoffs. And as long as you have great goaltending and help lead the way, you most certainly have a chance every time out there. Steven, so really wasn't much more I think that needs to be said about game 2. I agree. I think game 1's loss hurt more. Game 2, Carolina didn't play their best game, but they looked a lot more comfortable for a full 60 versus how they did in game 1. And that is why it was so frustrating to see the Rangers lose, because again, our expectations aren't crazy high here. We're happy with truly whatever happens as long as hopefully the Rangers win. But especially against the Carolina team, where how many times are you going to catch them off their game at home in playoffs? You know what I mean? So it's about executing when you have the opportunities given to you. Unfortunately, the Rangers didn't in game 1, and then game 2, they just didn't have enough. But game 3, back home, first game out the Garden in round 2, and thankfully the Rangers were starting to get up on the right foot, because Carolina entered game 3, and they were looking like a better team early on. But thankfully, the Rangers got a power play, and we all know how the Rangers are with their special teams. And it looks like that they caught, again, Carolina slipping a little bit as they were able to get good reads, and that led Mika Zibanejad to sniping that one in the left dot, just getting in between, it looks like, the shoulder, below the shoulder in the armpit area of Raanta, and that gave the Rangers the early lead. That was Zibanejad's 4th of the playoffs, assisted by Panarin and Fox. Power play goal there just around halfway through into the first. So great to see the Rangers get off to an early lead. And this was a Rangers team that had a different mix of lines. You know, Gallant mixed things up pretty well, and it actually showed a good amount of success. And that's what I love, and not necessarily just about in-game adjustments, but overall adjustments heading to the next game in playoffs. You need to do something that you really feel can benefit this club and get them on the right path of things, and hopefully turn things around after being down 2-0 in a series. And Gallant did just that. I thought the lines looked very strong. It gave the Rangers more depth a little bit, and they were able to secure things as they headed into the second period. And Chris Kreider, doing what Chris Kreider does, has a beautiful snipe, like around the net and on the tough angle shot there in the left side, snipes one up top shelf off of Ranta, and that's Kreider's 6th of this year's playoffs, assisted by Zibanejad and Trouba, and that was not long into the second period, only like 6 minutes or so in. Nino Niederreiter, however, would score not much later after that, only a couple minutes later. He gets his 4th of the year in the playoffs, assisted by Stahl and Smith. And then Brendan Smith, of course, he had that game winner in the previous game against the Rangers. But then we get to the third period for the Rangers. Again, this is a very chippy game. It starts to turn, especially as we got to the end of things. But Tyler Mott, who has been an unsung hero for the Rangers since the Rangers really have acquired him at the deadline, he's done everything but score goals for them. He's been phenomenal on the PK. He's been phenomenal 5-on-5 with his forecheck and backcheck ability, and he gets a massive empty net goal for the Rangers, and that was assisted by no one, unassisted for Mott's first of the playoffs. Huge story for him. Huge story for the Rangers, as the Rangers, again, they got outshot 44-33 in this one. Igor played absolutely phenomenal. As expected, had 43 saves on 44 shots. Rangers went 1 for 2 on their power play, and that ended up truly being the X factor in this one, along with the Rangers' key defense, because, they themselves had 17 blocks to Carolina's 10, but they also had a bunch of giveaways in this one too. The Rangers had 35 giveaways to Carolina's measly 11. So they were getting jumped on by the forecheck really well of Carolina, but thankfully Igor kept the minute. And just like that, this Rangers series feels a lot different than what it did just a couple days ago.
Yeah, and it was a really good game by the Rangers. Coming back to the Garden for Game 3, you're down 2-0. You really have a point to prove, because if you lose, you're down 3-0, and it's almost impossible to come back from that. I think the number of times an NHL team came back in a best of 7 after being down 3-0, I think it's the single digits in terms of the number of times it happened.
Yeah,
in 100+ years of NHL hockey. So it was vital that we won this game, and the Rangers started off really good. And we always complain that the Rangers aren't that good in early games. 3:30 puck drop. But started off good. Score on the power play. Mika Zibanejad, great goal. And we needed that. We needed that power play to do something for us, especially after that last game. And honestly, if it wasn't for the Niederreiter goal, which was a really bad goal to give up by Shesterkin, let's call it what it is. It was a bad goal to give up. If that goal doesn't happen, then we cruise to a win, and there's no tension at all in the third period. You're up 2 goals, it's fine. But the Rangers were really good. Even on the penalty kill, Tyler Mott was in the box at one point for a high stick. The Rangers were able to still kill off that penalty. That was very impressive, because Mott is easily their best penalty killer. I really liked what I saw from this team at home, and there's like this energy to it. And I think Vince Mercogliano was talking to Braden Schneider prior to the game, and he asked what the difference was in the playoffs. And Schneider said that for Game 1, he was sitting on the bench and he was looking around, and Reeves skated up to him and said, "Same game, only louder." And, Reeves may not have a big impact on the score sheet, but yeah, he's a vital part of this team.
Absolutely.
The way he fires them up, the way he's like a dad to these younger players, I think he went to a cup final with
Vegas. Yeah.
He went to a cup final with Vegas.
If not with the Pens too. Maybe he just missed with the Pens, because I know that he got traded for Oscar Sundqvist, but I don't remember when that was.
Yeah, so he didn't win. He left the Penguins right before they won a cup, and then he left the Blues right before they won a cup.
Yeah,
but he made the final with Vegas. But Ryan Reeves is a player that has his value, and it's much more noticeable than with a guy like Tanner Glass in the past. Now, that's not to say that Tanner Glass didn't have a similar impact. It's just that, these days with social media being very active, you can really see the impact a guy like Ryan Reeves has. And this team, there's something special about this team. Chris Kreider scoring his 30th career playoff goal as a Ranger, putting him in sole position for second all time, behind only Ross Gilbert with 34. We're seeing stuff that we're talking. I've been saying this all season. We're watching stuff that as Ranger fans we'll be talking about 20 years from now. This season, will be a cornerstone season in Rangers history, regardless of how far we get in the playoffs. There's so much that has happened this season. We're talking about a Vezina caliber season by our goalie. We're talking about a 50-goal season by one of our own draft picks. That has never happened before. But did you know that Chris Kreider now has the second most goals all time in a single season, regular season and postseason combined, with 58?
Wow.
Only Adam Graves in 1993-94 with 62 had more. Graves had 12 goals. Was it 12? No, 10 goals. Graves had 10 goals in the playoffs. Chris Kreider needs 4 more to tie Graves for that. But this team, when they're clicking, they're so much fun to watch. And I'm really looking forward to Game 4.
I'm looking forward to Game 4 as well, because while the Rangers legged this one out, thankfully, this felt like the best game that they had played, not just because they had won, but it's how they won, right? It was finally getting more of a balance outside the kid line here in Game 3 that they were really lacking in those first games 1 and 2 in Carolina. So credit once again, per usual, to Gallant for making the adjustments that he felt was best fit and for that to lead to success for this team. And credit to the guys, too, for mixing things up a little bit on the wing and still getting the job done. So now the Rangers are going to be entering Game 4 too. That's going to be huge. They're going to be at home for Game 4, of course. Before then, they head back to Carolina for that will be then Game 5. But I'm really curious how the Rangers are going to go about approaching things, because you saw Gallant said post game on the type of play that we can be if Carolina wants to continue acting the way that they do with the sense of aggressiveness. And we saw, towards the end of the game, that was Domi on Lindgren, right?
Yeah, Domi punched Lindgren in the back.
Yeah, I remember seeing that. That's why I was like, okay, yeah, not the nicest way to end the game. So clearly, this is something that may transfer over that into Game 4.
Domi's a meathead like his dad. It is what it is. I did laugh at Gallant telling D'Angelo to F off.
That was funny. I will say that was funny.
D'Angelo was crying all game long, of course. On the Kreider goal, he was complaining that Mika Zibanejad slashed him, but Zibanejad didn't slash him. He just lifted his stick, and D'Angelo let go of his stick.
Yeah.
But he channeled his inner Marcus Pettersson, because Marcus Pettersson was complaining to the refs when he lost his helmet. Mm-hmm. Instead of just putting his helmet back on and continuing to play, D'Angelo should have just picked up his stick and continued to play. But no, he was too busy complaining to the refs. And they look a little bit rattled. And if Rod Brindamore wants the Galaxy brain, this whole situation with their goalies, be my guest. I would love to see them put Anderson in. See them putting Anderson in net. Without any game time, straight into the second round of the playoffs. I like our chances against either goalie anyway. And I'm not saying that the Rangers are a lock to advance to the conference final. By no means.
No.
But I like our chances. I stick with what I said before Game 1. This is a beatable team.
The chances feel different than they did in the Penn series. Even the games that the Rangers won, more often than not, you felt like you couldn't count the Pens out. Not that you can count Carolina out either, but maybe it's because of the lack of overall goal scoring we've seen thus far, and it's been a defensively minded and heavy showing based off of great goaltending between a current Ranger and a former Ranger, which I will say I just want to take a minute to give a lot of credit to Antti Raanta and what he's done, because obviously he's the guy that's going to get the short end of the stick. If Anderson's ready and they feel more comfortable with him, Anderson's going to go in, and that's it for Raanta. But he's been phenomenal for them thus far, as have a bunch of former Rangers. I mean, including Brendan Smith. I was like, of course, Brendan was the guy to get the game-winning goal the other day when he should have been kept by the Rangers over potentially getting Nemeth. So it was like these things felt inevitable, but I don't have any ill will against this Carolina team. I love the majority of the team, with not just a bunch of former Rangers, but just such a talented club. So while this series is now getting chippy and my viewpoint may change emotionally based on what transpires in a game, I just want to give credit again. This has been a slow-moving yet entertaining game series overall. Game 3 really stood out for us Ranger fans. Hopefully that transfers over into Game 4. But again, as long as they give a valiant effort, that's always important to me. If the Rangers somehow, some way do leg out and go to the ECF and their first year of out of the rebuild and into now the kind of just this playoff mentality, I'm all for it. I'll be ecstatic. But again, at this point, everything just feels like a not necessarily a pleasant surprise, but like a cherry on top, like a luxury a little bit. It has a different
cherry
feeling
on
to it.
top. Cherry on top is the right thing to say here, and I refer to it as gravy. Once we got to Game 7 in the first round, I said whatever happens tonight, everything's gravy. If we lose in Game 7, we were able to take a 2-time Stanley Cup winning team, which a lot of those players had 2 rings on that team, some even 3. If we would have lost, we would have taken a very experienced Stanley Cup winning pedigree team to 7 games in our first playoff outing in 5 years.
Exactly.
The fact that we won Game 7 is even better, and now the second round we won a game. Now I want to win another game. But so far, everything that happens from now on is just bonus. It's just a bonus. It's just extra. It's like buying a ticket to a baseball game, and it goes extra innings.
It's free baseball. Yep, you just keep going. Yeah.
I thought I'd throw in a baseball reference there for you.
I appreciate it, Steven. I would like to let you know, Steven, I haven't finished it yet, but I did start frequency. So
cool.
There's progress. I'm not done with it yet, but I have started.
I did see someone tweet yesterday that the Yankees had 1 run in 18 innings because they played like 2 games in 1 day or something.
Yeah, the Yankees had probably their worst day of the season last year. They got swept by the White Sox in a doubleheader. Correct.
Yeah. So doubleheaders when they play the same team twice.
Yes, and that's usually because there was, say, a rain out the day prior, just something to postpone the game, and then it's a full 2 9-inning games back to back. There's either a half-hour break in between or a couple-hour break, depending on what the exact times are. But yeah, it's a long day of baseball. It's fun. I was just there for a doubleheader in Philly. I want to say not even 2 weeks ago. The Mets ended up winning that series, thankfully.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. But look at this baseball talk in the middle of a Rangers playoff chat. What is going on, Steven?
I thought I'd throw you a bone.
You're coming into the dark side. Here's the thing: that bone can become a tangent really long in 2 seconds. So I'll shut up now.
I'm not going to support the Mets ever. No.
You trust me, Steven. I will get you on the Mets train. You don't know it now, and neither does your fiance. But trust me, it'll happen.
If you make me a Mets fan, she's not going to be happy.
I think it'll just be perfect though. So that way you guys can at least disagree on something. You gotta have something in there. You need to spice things up a little bit. I think that definitely helps for a healthy relationship. But getting off this tangent now, talking about the Rangers a little bit further before we start to answer questions, because I don't think that there's, too much that really needs to be broken down on the Rangers' approach going forward. And, Steven, if you have any fun stats that you'd like to throw our way about this series thus far, by all means, go for it. But besides that, I just want to mention once more how the Rangers now going to Game 4. They're down by a game. This is a game that hopefully the Rangers can leg out. I did see someone in the chat, though, Raphael said here in the live stream on YouTube that over the past 2 times we've recorded, the Rangers lost the following game. So if that does happen, then you can blame us wholeheartedly. There's no one to blame more than here at the Rangers Review podcast should the Rangers lose their next game. But if they can somehow leg things out, they get back to even, then they go with Carolina. And, Carolina as well doesn't have that. Yes, they have the home ice advantage because of the decisions versus the fans per se. But even the fan aspect, there's so many Ranger fans there. I know that they have it where a certain amount of seats only Canes fans can be. But you saw there's a good amount there, especially because of the fact that a lot of people just reside in North Carolina that are from New York, that are diehard Ranger fans. So it doesn't have as much of a home ice impact as maybe other opposing teams may have.
The biggest thing with home ice advantage is not so much playing at home. It's not so much sitting in your own dressing room. It's the fact that your coach has the last change.
Yeah.
It's the fact that on face-offs, you get to put your stick on the ice first. It's small things like that. And especially the last change when, the only time you don't have a last change is if there's an icing. But if it's a normal face-off, the home team gets to put their lines out second. And that's a huge advantage because that's how you create mismatches on the ice. And that's the biggest advantage of playing at home. And like I said earlier, the Carolina Hurricanes haven't lost at home, but more importantly, haven't won on the road either. So I like our chances tomorrow, Game 4. We can tie it up and go into Carolina for Game 5. I like, and now with Kreider and Zibanejad getting a goal, if they can play like this in Game 4 and Game 5, yeah, man, I like our chances. I'm still not putting money on the Rangers advancing because it is such a close series. It could go either way. But if you would have told me a year ago that we would go head to head with the Carolina Hurricanes in the second round and we'd actually be able to keep up with them, I wouldn't have believed you.
Yeah.
The strides this team has made, it's unbelievable.
And it's just so impressive. I cannot emphasize again how important it has been with these kids, how much they've stepped up, and how they've transferred over their play from, again, round 1 to round 2. If it wasn't for them, the Rangers aren't in games 1 and 2 the way that they are, especially game 1. And that's huge too. I think it sparks a little bit of fire under the ass of the top 6, just the vets overall, and Kreider, Zibanejad, and Panarin to make sure that they're not slacking for too long. If you see young kids, this is all their first playoff experience outplaying you when you are the top dogs on the team, then naturally that says something to you right away. Like, okay, I need to be better because don't get me wrong. I'm happy that my teammates are thriving, but so should I. And I think we started to see more of that, obviously, in Game 3 and the Rangers 3-1 victory. But hopefully, again, that transfers over for the remainder of the series because if I'm being quite honest, I don't know how the remaining of the series is going to go. I'm not going to sit here and predict how I think the outcome is going to be. I think that's perfectly fine. I mean, there's no reason to believe that we know for certain how the next couple of games are going to go because no one and their mother would have predicted what transpired in Game 7, overall a 7-game series last time against the Penguins in the first round. So, Steven, do you have any kind of final remarks that you'd like to make about what we've seen thus far before I say we get to some questions and wrap things up?
Shesterkin is playing like the Shesterkin that got him Vezina votes.
He is, and he isn't being thrown off the way that he was in Pittsburgh as well. The Igor chants aren't the same that they were in Pittsburgh. It's a big factor too.
Last night's game, Rangers are up 2-1. Hurricanes pulled the goalie. Trouba has the puck. Yeah, he doesn't pass it to Shesterkin. And after at the first whistle, Shesterkin skated up to Trouba, and they were like exchanging words, and you could tell that it was about not passing the puck to Shesterkin.
Igor's like, "You son of a bitch! Give me this one opportunity."
And I think he tapped him on the ass with a stick.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's nice to see Shesterkin in his element like that. It's good.
Where he's quite literally in a playoff round against one of the best teams in the league, is up with a lead, a lot of pressure with dying minutes to seconds left, and his main focus is to get himself
get me the puck.
Get me the puck. But that shows you, I mean, he has that. We know he has that amazing ability. He's not just focused on making the saves. He's always looking at the bigger picture. That's why you see him jumping down the puck. So like tape to tape to Mika or whoever into the offensive zone. He does it so.
What I love the most about Shesterkin is that he's so unpredictable. When he has the puck behind the net, me as a Rangers fan who has watched Shesterkin for the last 9 years, I have no idea what he's going to do. Because he could go left, he could go right, he could circle behind the net and go for a saucer pass into the neutral zone. The opportunities are endless with this guy. When the puck is on his stick, it's anyone's guess. And this is what keeps the opponents on their toes. And that's the great thing about it. When the Penguins pulled their goalie in, I don't remember, I cannot remember which game it was. I think it was game 5 or 6. Or maybe it was game 2. Anyway, we had a lead late. They pulled their goalie. And all Shesterkin wanted to do was get the puck. He wants to go for it because that's how confident he is. And I'm glad. I'm glad that he has his confidence back. He had a couple of rough games, but as I explained earlier, I think it was an injury after the Carter hit and the Rodriguez slew foot. He's back on his game.
A healthy, locked-in Igor Shesterkin is probably the most terrifying thing to face for any opposing club in the NHL. And if they haven't realized that yet, they will soon enough.
The last 6 games, Igor Shesterkin, .935 save percentage.
Oof. So good.
Since the second time he was scratched, that's a save percentage in 6 games.
I'm not surprised. I'm just glad to see him. We saw him at his worst, and now we're seeing him at his best. All in unison here.
By the way, Brody brings up a really good point. Let me look up the
tweet. About the fans. Yeah.
Let me look it up here.
And I'd like to say, too, again, I appreciate everyone that's been chiming in here in the live show. Guys, we're going to be starting to answer your questions here in a minute for 10 minutes or so before we wrap things up and just look at, when are we going to be recording next, and overall, how are these next couple games going to go for the Rangers? And also for people wherever you get your podcasts, if you want some comments answered too, just try your best to check us out during our live streams here on YouTube on the Rangers Review YouTube channel.
So here's what Sjorkin said after last night's game. I would like to thank the fans for the energy they provided. They supported me, even though I kind of let them down in that one spot, talking about the Niederreiter goal. But that energy at MSG is always great. They're always charged up. I mean, as a fan base, reading that, how does that not get you pumped for Game 4?
It gets you. It makes you feel absolutely electric. I mean, the Rangers, again, led by Igor Shesterkin. I mean, that feel at the Garden, it gives you chills. I'm sure it does for the players too. And again, this is their first taste for many of them, playoff experience-wise, in the Garden. What is that feeling like versus regular season? And it's truly something special that you have to experience yourself, I think is the best way to describe it.
And it's not just that. It's also the fact that these guys, even guys like Fox and Lindgren and Kakko, they're coming off their first 82-game season.
Yeah.
They just went through 2 shortened seasons to start their NHL career. And all of a sudden you go to 82-game seasons. And the first 82-game season, you follow it up with a playoff appearance. That's pretty impressive, the way some of these kids have handled themselves. And you know who, for me, the biggest surprise has been so far this playoffs?
Surprise?
K'Andre Miller.
I want to say I'm a little surprised, but I'm not overly, just because we saw his trend upward in the second half this past season.
Yes, that is true, but he is going up against guys like Malkin and is not phased at all.
Yep.
And the way he slammed Seth Jarvis to the ice twice in 10 seconds on both sides of the ice, once in the defensive zone, once in the offensive zone. He's playing with some snarl. He's playing with confidence, and you can tell. K'Andre Miller on defense, Alexis Lafreniere on offense. Those have been the most positive experiences for me so far as a fan.
And you gotta love it because it's the two buddies, the roommates, right? Got that little connection.
They stayed at the same billet family in their rookie season. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, that's awesome. Key has been, lights out. He's been jaw dropping even with how I think fantastic he's been, but not just his neutral zone game, but his ability to back check and stay on guys. I mean, he's a big body guy, but there's a reason why he was brought up as a forward. He has really strong speed. We know his protection of the puck, and just his self-awareness on defense has taken things to new heights that we did not see to begin the season. And, especially as we got to the second half, we saw it a lot more, but for it to come, full-fledged and right before our eyes when it matters most, he looks like a vet out there, the same way that Laffy has looked like a vet out there. Because Laffy, while, yes, he's known as this prized first overall pick, Laffy has an aggressiveness to his game that I think that people, maybe including myself, weren't expecting that we would get to this degree early on. And that's been phenomenal to see, too. I mean, he's no slouch. He's going to tell you how it is. He's going to get in a scrum no matter who it's with. And he also has elite talent. So, just his playmaking ability, along with K'Andre's just phenomenal overall game. It's been a recipe for success for this Rangers team that's definitely going to leave all of us positive, at least to take away a big positive out of this playoffs, regardless on whatever the results may be.
True.
Okay. All right. Well, let's get into some comments, shall we, before we start to wrap things up and take a look at the Rangers' history of number 58. I do see a couple, so let's do that right now. Would they put Gaudreau if he's available this series? Where would they put him? I don't know what the current status of Barkley is. If I'm not mistaken, I thought from what I had seen that he had like a fractured ankle. I don't know how accurate that is, but I do know that if it is something to that significance, yes, hockey players are hockey players. All they need is like a big cortisone shot, tape that bad boy up stiff, and then they'll get back out there because playoff hockey just hits different. Regardless on if it's good or not for their health, they're more often than not, they're going to try to get back out there. If he does come back, I don't know where he would be put on the lines. I think that's a great question. And I really think it's going to be however Gallant deems is best to make these look as balanced and as deep as possible. So, Steven, is there a spot that you think might work best for Barclay should he return in the series?
If Barclay Goodrow is healthy and no one else is injured at the same time that's currently playing, it's really, you're not talking about taking off your worst, taking out a bad player. You're talking about putting in a better player for an already good player. I don't think it's going to be Reeves. I don't think it's going to be, definitely not Mott. I unfortunately for Kevin Rooney, I think he would be the guy that sits out. A fourth line of Mott, Goodrow, Reeves would be pretty interesting to watch. And unless a guy like Vetrano sits, I think it's going to be Kevin Rooney.
I think Kevin Rooney might be the odd man out too, just because Goodrow's game is not far off from Rooney's, but it's better. It has more experience, and I think that would be the best route for them.
His versatility really helps you out too.
Oh, yeah, him and Mott, because you can just slot Goodrow in exactly where you would normally have Rooney, for example, on the PK or whatever it may be. And then he, of course, can help on the power play should you need him. So he does have the versatility on his special teams, along with just on the lines. He can be put in center if you need him at center, put him on the wing, be on the wing, similar to Kopp in that aspect. So, yeah, I don't know if we're going to have Barkley back in this series. By all means, I'd be for it if he's ready to go. But right now, it's a wait and see. And again, I am happy. I am happy with the Rangers' depth. I just hope that they continue to show it, regardless of him and Sammy Blais being out. I know Blais has been skating still. I don't expect him in this series. I think if Blais does return, then our best chances would probably be in the third round if the Rangers do get to the conference finals, because Blais missed basically the entirety of the season with a significant injury, and now we've been seeing him skating consistently. I don't think he's in contact jerseys yet, though. Has he been? I don't think he has, right? Yeah, so he's still in non-contact.
He's been out for 6 months. You don't just stroll back into an NHL lineup for the second round of the playoffs in a week.
Yeah,
after being out for 6 months. We're not talking about Mott, who was out for like 2 weeks. That's a completely different story. So
yeah, especially when you look at the fact that Blais, does he have the experience? Has he won a championship before? Yes. But to go from early on into the regular season to the last time he played to potentially like Eastern Conference Finals playoff hockey, that's an adjustment. So, you know, I think if the Rangers get Blais back at any point, that'd be tremendous. But that's similar to the Rangers playing in the second round to begin with, has that feeling of being a cherry on top, you know, just like adding on more positives. That isn't necessarily something that's needed, but it definitely doesn't hurt.
If Blais is back, and again, unless they take out a top 9 player in like Vetrano, it has to be Reeves that comes out for Blais in that case.
Yeah, and that would probably be the most locked and loaded fourth line you could ask for with Blais, Goodrow, and Mott.
That should be our fourth line next season.
That should be our fourth line next season.
Well, we'll talk about that over the summer.
Yes, we will. But okay, a couple more comments we'll get to before we get to the final segment here in the show. I think we just answered that. Any confidence will be, I don't think Blais will be back this series. There's been nothing to indicate that he will at this point other than him skating non-contact. Of course, anything can change, but I wouldn't get my hopes up on it. If we see Blais back, I would be surprised if it was still this series. But again, I've seen crazier things happen. Let's see. Where do the Rangers need to improve the most? Most of you guys said in the chat. I think
that's the easiest question we've ever had.
Yeah, I know. It's quite literally. I mean, they had it going. Wait. What, James? I mean, you're making me say James, Steven.
It's face-offs.
I know. That's what I was just going to say. Everyone made it abundantly clear. I'm glad we're in unison, everyone. Yeah, the face-offs have once. You're telling me the New York Rangers have struggled with face-offs? Preposterous.
I know. I know this is news to you, but let me tell you, the Rangers have been struggling on face-offs. Yes, I said this in an earlier recording. The last time the Rangers finished a full season over 50%, our current president was still the captain.
There you go.
0809. Were you watching the Rangers in 0809?
I went to probably a game or two with my family, but I was not actively watching them at that age.
So you've never seen the Rangers finish over 50% in face-offs in a full season?
All I've known is mediocrity in that position, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I've known since the early days of watching Derek step on the top 6 and wondering what is going wrong here. Brian Boyle being my unsung hero, the only guy to go like above 50 in the fourth line. That's my birth into the Rangers and their face-off woes. That goes far back than even that.
So here's my question, right? instead of signing and trading for centers and teaching them how to win faceoffs,
Let's just get like the best center guru out
why
there.
don't you just go after the centers that are already good at winning faceoffs? It's such an illogical approach.
It'll never happen, but we should just throw an absolute bag at Patrice Bergeron as soon as he retires and have him be our coach for faceoffs. He's exactly who I would want.
Give him $5 million a year.
But yeah, I mean, hey, people don't seem to realize how much of a difference that the same way you saw Mika dominating the faceoff dot in game 6 and game 7. You see how much of a difference that makes. It's drastic.
Look at the Washington Capitals. They hired Michael Pekka to help them with faceoff.
Yes, they did.
Helped them immensely.
Rangers guy, keep taking notes on that one. This is something that doesn't matter what regime you've been a fan of, like following through. This has been a universal issue in this organization for as long as I've ever known.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's see. One or two more before we wrap things up here. Panarin and Fox seem to like non-factors with us this series. Would we'd aperture I can't even speak right now. Would us attribute that to opposing teams D, injury or what? Frustrating knowing what they're capable of. I think it's the defense more than anything. I mean, Panarin, he struggled a bit in the Penguins series, had a lack of shooting. Thankfully, shot it where it mattered most. But I would just say the overall defense. You got to realize Carolina is just a different animal because their forwards as well can have a phenomenal neutral zone game. That's something that the Rangers were not hit with nearly to the same degree against the Penguins. Yes, the Penguins dominated at times, but the Canes are younger. They're faster. They're more vibrant. A lot more of them are in their peaks right now of their career or starting to get up there, the upper echelon of things. I think the overall team defense has been that biggest factor. I mean, you said it yourself, Steven. The Carolina Hurricanes, top defense going into this one. It's not going to be an easy task, even for your top players.
Yeah, I do have a question from Michael. Is that a typo or are you Irish? Because Irish people say use. Why?
Okay. Got you. I mean, use is slang that's used in the U.S. as well.
Okay.
But yeah.
Very Irish thing. So I don't know.
Yeah. It makes me think perfectly of one of the best movie scenes ever in A Bronx Tale, which I'm sure your fiance knows very much of if you don't. But they're in a bar, and it's the Italian mafia basically, and they're matching up against a bunch of bikers, and the bikers caused them an issue originally, and then they locked them in, and then the head guy's like, "Now yous can't leave." And then a whole brawl ensued and everything. So yeah, no, use is a thing. It's been a thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
But talking about Panarin and Fox, I think Fox is fine. He's the target of their best players. Yeah, Aho is out there to neutralize Adam Fox. I think Aho is one of the most underrated players in the league.
I can agree with that.
I think Aho should be a finalist for the Selke Trophy.
Yeah. I'm sure he has the numbers to back it.
Yeah. Panarin, though, Panarin's issue is that, look, I've seen Panarin play in the playoffs with Columbus. I've seen Panarin dominate in the playoffs. That's why I think Panarin is definitely nursing some kind of injury.
I believe that really since the Penguins series has begun. He just hasn't looked. He's not playing terrible. He's looking like he's overthinking a little bit. And again, there's still a little bit of a lack of shooting, especially where was it game 2? I think it was game 2. He had no shots on goal. Yeah. So that's just stuff that needs to change, regardless on what your opponent is. It's always, in my opinion, important to pepper the goaltender at some point. When you don't do it at any point in a game, that can be frustrating, especially when you're the highest paid player on this team in Panarin. You're supposed to be creating offense on a game-to-game basis. So if we don't get that production and it drops like out of nowhere in playoffs, that is a red flag. Because again, we've been consistently getting that. Even when Panarin's been at his worst, he has still been a really effective player for this team. But if you're at your worst and you can't even get a point on the board, that is again where we start to have our slight issues. And they're fair criticisms, rightfully so. And that's why I just hope that we see more of a balance with not just his top 6, but overall forward group. And to not overthink things too much on the power play as well. I mean, Mika, it was awesome to see him score yesterday, but the same way that the Rangers couldn't score when they even had a double minor in the previous game. You just have to try to take advantage of those opportunities. And for Breadman's case, especially because he doesn't have a phenomenal back-checking game, at least when he doesn't want to, it's that much more important to make sure that you can execute and be that assist machine at the very least that you were during the regular season.
But I think the biggest reason is that we are playing the best defense in the league.
Yeah.
I mean, if we go up against the Edmonton Oilers, we're scoring 5-6 goals a game.
Yeah, we are. I don't think you're wrong there.
But we're talking about the team, like I said, the team that won, and I say team because I think it's a team trophy, not just a goalie trophy, the William M. Jennings trophy. They won the William M. Jennings trophy for allowing the fewest goals in the regular season. The Rangers were like 2 or 3 goals behind them. So we're talking about number 1 and 2 in the regular season in terms of goals allowed. It's a low scoring series because these are the 2 best defensive teams on paper.
Yep.
Based on the numbers in the regular season, these are the 2 best teams defensively. I think that's more. I think that's also a large part. That's sometimes hard to accept, for fans of a team. When you see your team lose, it's always like, oh, this player sucks, or the referees are terrible. Or, no, sometimes you lose because your opponent is playing a really good game.
Yeah.
But yeah, look, I'm quite happy with where this team is right now. I honestly, I couldn't be happier. And I said it before, if they can win another game and they get it to 6, even if they lose 4-2, I mean, this is already gravy for me. This whole second round is just extra.
Okay, Steven. So next time that we record, I think will be indicative on really how the next couple games go for the Rangers. Because if say they go 7 games, I will be out of town. I'll be in North Carolina for a couple days. I'm flying out the 31st, so we would have to try to record maybe at some point on that 31st or the day after, should they go 7 games. But if the Rangers end up, say, ending things in potentially 6, then I would say if that happens, if either of them losing or winning, then maybe we can record after that game 6, which would be the 29th. So we don't know for certain yet. I'll let you know, and hopefully I'll let you guys know for everyone that follows the pod when you get a chance. But the Rangers, we're probably not going to talk until they play at minimum 3 more games, top 4. Do you want to share a prediction at all for how you think these games may go, or do you just want to kind of hold it on your own? Because I think personally, I'm not going to bother predicting. I don't want to, 1, jinx anything, and 2, I just want to kind of feel things out with every single game. Feels different than the regular season, obviously. So
yeah, playoff series is different, but this series has all the ingredients for the teams to win their home games and it going to 7.
And then that 7th game will be whether or not the Rangers can step up and break the narrative, which would be only winning at home, for the Carolina's sake, this entire playoff. Again, all that changes if Carolina ends up winning game 4, which is going to be tomorrow. So, I mean, that changes on its head really quick. So we'll see. You guys will know at some point, depending on when you're listening to this.
Coming back from 3-1 down is not new to this team, though.
That is certain. It is not. It's so not new that's almost like they just did that like a week or so ago.
I've seen them do it against the Penguins twice. I've seen them do it against the Capitals.
Yep.
I wouldn't be surprised if they do it again. But let's hope
this would have to be the first time, though, either ever or in a long time. That actually, no. My mistake. I don't know why I was thinking for a second that the Canes weren't in the Metro. They're in the Metro, but they always feel like they're out of the Metro to me. I don't know why.
They never were in the Atlantic Division when the Atlantic Division was still our division.
It's weird. I don't know why. I think maybe it's because the Canes had a very long stretch of not being good. And then they, of course, over the past couple of years have really taken things to new heights. But normally when you think of the Metro, for a long time at least, it was, the Capitals, the Penguins, and then the Flyers and the Penguins. Flyers, Penguins, Capitals, and why do I feel like I'm blanking on one more team?
Devils.
Yeah.
It's okay.
That's a decade ago, though.
It's okay if you forget about them.
That's literally, they hit their peak in the 2000s a decade ago already, so.
Yeah, no, but it was still the Atlantic Division. It was 5 teams, Rangers, Islanders, Devils, Flyers, Penguins. It was perfect. And then
Islanders, there you go.
You had the Southeast with the Lightning, the Panthers, the Capitals, the Hurricanes, and the Thrashers.
Yeah.
And then the Northeast Division was the Bruins, the Canadiens, the Sabres, the Senators, and the Maple Leafs.
Oof, that's a whole mix.
The five team divisions, and that was fun. It was 1 through 8 with the 3 division winners being 1, 2, 3. I hate this whole bracket in the playoffs. I cannot stand it because I'm just sick and tired of playing the same teams over and over again.
Rightfully so.
You
Yeah,
know,
I don't blame you at all.
and Chris makes a good point. You know, I want to be in the same division as the Boston Bruins.
Yep.
How has the NHL not figured out a way to make the New York Boston rivalry a thing in their sport?
I mean, we talked about this a lot, and I still don't have an answer for it because the marketing's there, but they do it. I feel like they still do it at wrong times, especially like they focus on the Thanksgiving game. Okay, I get that, but I don't know. I feel like there needs to be more like either Friday or Saturday night matchups on either garden for those teams.
I'm never upset if we lose to the Bruins because it doesn't feel like a rivalry to me. It's not a rivalry.
It should, though, the same way that the Yankees and the Red Sox are the most prominent rivalry in all baseball.
Like, original six rivalry.
Even the Celtics and the Knicks have a strong rivalry. The Celtics and Brooklyn have a decent rivalry. Like,
Yeah.
Interesting. Well, okay, Steven, this is episode 58, which means we're going to go over briefly the Rangers' history of that jersey number of 58. And is there anyone that you think like I for certain should know of off the top of my head?
There's one that's pretty recent that you might know. There's 2 in total.
What was the first year of the last guy?
2018-19.
Okay. I thought of someone, but I think he's 59. Oh, wait, no, he's 51. I'm thinking of David Desharnais. It's not him. Yeah. I think we discussed him already. Is this a defenseman?
It's a defenseman who scored 20 goals in the AHL in the season.
Oh. We had him 2018, 2019.
Yeah. He was drafted by the Calgary Flames. Calgary didn't offer him a contract, and then the Rangers signed him for 2 years.
I think I got it. Is it Gilmore? John Gilmore?
John Gilmore. There you go.
Yeah, I remember him, the high flyer. Yep.
Yeah.
I don't know where he's been. Last time I remember him, he was with Buffalo.
He was with the Sabres in 2019, 2020. Also wore number 58 for them. Let's see. I'll quickly check it. The second one was 2013, by the way. See if you can get that one. John Gilmore plays for CSKA Moscow in the KHL.
Okay, makes sense. His two-way game was never anything fantastic. He was very offensively gifted.
Tailor-made for the KHL, to be honest.
Yep. And the other guy was in 2013.
Yeah, second-round pick by the Rangers.
Defense or offense?
Offense. Right winger. Actually played with Vitaly Kravtsov in Russia recently.
Oh.
For Traktor Chelyabinsk.
This one might be the stumper for me.
Now plays in Switzerland for Bern.
Give me one more hint, and then that's it.
His last name is also a first name. So you could... Like George Michael.
Like George Michael?
Like George Michael. Your last name is also a first name. It's the same with this player. You could swap names and it would still work.
I feel like I should know this. It's gonna bother me. I don't got it. Who is it?
Christian Thomas.
Christian Thomas? I have very little recollection of that man. I gotta be honest. I gotta look him up. I'll look him up.
He played 1 game for the Rangers.
Oh, well, there you go. Oh my God. You could have clarified that at least in the beginning. My goodness. Making me out here feeling like a dummy more than I already am.
February 23rd, 2013 at 7 p.m. at the Bell Center. Christian Thomas made his NHL debut, and in a total of 12 minutes and 46 seconds, he had nothing. 2 shots, that's it. No goals, no assists, no points, no plus minus, no penalty minutes. 2 shots. That's
this man really thought he was getting ice time when John Tortorella's coaching. You thought wrong.
He then went to the Montreal Canadiens, played 25 games for them, Then one more game for the Arizona Coyotes before he made his way to Sweden, where he played for Rögle, which is the team that Adam Edstrom played for last season. Before making his way to Russia to join Vitaly Kravtsov at Dr. Chelyabinsk. Then moved to Bern in Switzerland, then to Finland for Kuku, the team that Levi Aaltonen plays for. He played with that prospect as well. So he's like the Rangers prospect whisperer.
He's like if you were a player, Steven.
If I was a player, I'd be Christian Thomas. Is that what
I'm
you're
gonna
saying?
start calling you Christian now. Yes.
And then this past season, he started in the KHL with Barry's Nur Sultan, and then he finished the season in Switzerland with Bern again.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, that was interesting. Again, another day, a pod with you where I learned something new. So even though that it was shame on me for not knowing much of Christian Thomas, now I do.
That's the goal, man. The goal is to teach you something new, to teach you about the obscure history of the Rangers. That's the fun part.
100%. Well, I think that's a great way of ending this, folks. So again, I hope you guys enjoyed. This was Rangers Review episode 58. We'll be back sometime soon. Hopefully, maybe if it goes a 6-game series, we'll try to be back the 29th. If not, then we'll try as soon as we possibly can, basically, whenever the series gets wrapped up.
I have one more thing I want to share.
And what is that you want to share, Steven?
If I'm Chris Drury, my number one priority to re-sign would be Tyler Mott, not Andrew Copp.
I know, and we'll talk more about that when we get to the summer, because it's going to be plenty of that talk. And while I want Andrew Copp probably more than anyone, I really, really want Tyler Mott back too. So that
empty net goal was gorgeous.
That was probably the best empty net goal. I mean, the feeling though, just everything.
I love how slowly it trickled into the net.
No one deserves it more than him.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. Perfect. All right. Well, thank you again, folks. This is Rangers Review 58. We'll be back again over the next week or so. I hope the Rangers play some great hockey. I know you hope the same. But until we speak again, have a great rest of your week, everyone. And Steven, let's go Rangers.
Let's go Rangers.